So this week's module is going to be an introduction into the world of flower essences. Now, as with all of the principles and the modalities that we've looked at through the modules, this will be a good introduction, a good starting point. But of course, with any modality, there's a whole world of depth and dimensionality that we're not going to have time to explore. We can do several weeks or months on any given topic. But the flower essences are a subtle regimen for imbalances in your emotional and soul expression. And what we're going to be doing is looking at them particularly in the context of how you might apply them in your 90-day regimen program. So personally, my story around the flower essences, they were actually a modality which opened up a lot for me. I mean, as far as my own personal emotional life and expression, but also as far as my interest in energy medicine and then homeopathic medicines more specifically later on. In fact, originally I'd kind of been aware of homeopathy, but I just seemed so complicated to me. I actually started to explore the flower essences first because it seemed more accessible, at least when I was a beginner. And the experiences that I had, as I said, were so powerful that it actually made me that much more interested and fascinated in this whole idea of energy medicine. Now, the principle which flower essences are applied on is is generally the law of opposites. If you remember back earlier, we were differentiating the idea between the law of similars versus the law of opposites and how these apply to the different jurisdictions in healthcare. We have the regimenal jurisdiction, which of course is what we've been focused on, and we have the medical jurisdiction, which is more the realm of the homeopathic remedies and the law of similars. So for the flower essences, as I say, they're a regimenal modality, meaning they work on the law of opposites, and they are, as I say, they are in support of your regimen. Now, just to expand on the idea of opposites, let's think of it this way. If you're feeling sad or you're feeling down and a friend comes along and kind of cheers you up, either takes you out for a fun time or just gives you encouraging words, that's an example of the law of opposites. And the exact same kind of thing is happening with a flower essence, just at the subtle energy level as far as what you're ingesting with the remedy. Now, historically, the Bach flower remedies, which came from Dr. Edward Bach in the 1930s, they were the first kind of formalized system presented to the world. Dr. Bach was originally a homeopath, actually, but he was kind of led by his own capacities and his own interest to develop something at a different level in terms of these flower essences. And then starting around the 1970s, many regional flower essence systems started springing up all over the world. So just a few examples, but there are many, many others. We have the Australian bush flower essences. We have the Pacific essences, and actually those are interesting. They aren't just flowers, but she goes into extracting the essences from different sea creatures like whale and dolphin and sea urchin and so on. It's quite an interesting series. There's the California flower essences, the Bailey flower essences, and the Canadian forest tree essences. And as I say, there are many others, but this just kind of speaks to how there's all these different, regional flowers. But of course, the regional and the particular, of course, speak to very general human archetypes. So there's a whole world of exploration as to getting into all these different aspects of our emotional expression and the soul qualities expressed by all these different regional systems of flower essences. So I just pulled out a handful of examples. These are remedies directly from the series of the Bach remedies, and I just picked out ones that would likely be helpful or specific to what you could be working on through your 90-day regimen program. Of course, there are so many other possibilities. I'm just focusing on some generic things that are going to be more easy for you to relate to, at least at first, and then you can dig in a more depth way as far as your own your own individual needs. So, anyways, what we have in the examples are is rescue remedy. That's actually the only combination Dr. Bach put out, and it's the general go-to remedy for situations of stress or even first aid for shock and trauma situations. And that's actually often of any of the flower essences, that would be the one most likely that someone would carry in their purse or in their glove compartment of their car or something like that. Second one is Serato, and that is for helping to tap into your inner knowing or intuition. May be useful when you're working on listening to what the voice of your inner resonance is saying. Next essence is cherry plum, and actually that's one of the essences of the rescue remedy combination, but on its own, it has to do with the feeling that you may lose control or even explode. It may be helpful when dealing with letting go of cravings, addictions, or other non-resonant regimen that you've become dependent on. Next one is chestnut bud, and that's for failure to learn from experience, for repeating the same mistakes over and over again. The essence of gentian is for feeling discouraged as from a setback, such as falling off the wagon in your regimen program. And the last example I pulled out here is willow, and that's for feeling sorry for yourself or resentful that other people have it so easy while it's so difficult for you. So, your homework for this week is go back in your journal and review your progress so far with your regimen program and identify exactly how you responded to roadblocks and other difficulties. What are the typical emotional stances or soul qualities with which you respond to adversity? Feeling defeated, blaming, emotionally withdrawn, hiding behind a cheerful mask? What's your go-to emotion or soul expression? Take a look through the 38 Bach flower remedies, or the other systems if you wish, and select a handful of the most representative essences for yourself, and particularly on this idea of what your go-to emotion or soul expression is, particularly under difficult circumstances.